Hi and welcome to episode 5 of the Pigskin Project. This will be a fun episode. We're definitely gonna go over the Super Bowl in the off season, and after today, off season or after this weekend, off season is gonna kick off. But definitely can't skip over the most important game of the season this year.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. We're just a few days before the big game, and I am so excited for that. Ben knows I work at a Papa John's, and that's normally a it's normally a mandatory day. But I got my little workarounds, so I was able to get it off, and I'm looking forward to watching it for the first time in I think a couple of years, just to stay at home and be all relaxed and everything. It should be a lot of fun. But
I mean, perfect Super Bowl for you to watch too again. And we'll get into it, but it'll be
yeah,
a really fun Super Bowl. I'm glad you're
we're
able to get it
hoping.
off.
I mean, it
Yeah.
couldn't be as bad as the Rams' last Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was awful.
Yes, it was.
But all right, so with that, let's dive right into the weekly news. We have 3 new coaching hires just to end the whole coaching carousel. The Dolphins signed Mike McDaniel. The Texans signed Lovie Smith, former Bear, and the Saints signed Dennis Allen. I wanted to talk my piece just a little bit about Lovie Smith, just because, for one, I don't think that he ever should have left Chicago. I think he's a fantastic coach, and I think it was a dumb decision to let him go after a 10-6 season. That's not terrible at all, and I really don't understand it, like, as to why he got let go, but I'm also really excited to see how he can do with Houston, judging by, his offensive coordinator that he'll be having. Ben said that he's a huge fan of, what's his name? It's Pep something, right?
Pep Hamilton.
Pep Hamilton. Yeah. I don't know. I just remember Pep because that's a fun name to say. But, Lovey, he's a good defensive guy. He didn't really do too well in Illinois, but he did pull off a couple upsets, if I remember correctly. But I mean, I have some faith in him, and I know that it's probably going to be a short-term, coaching situation, but I'm excited to see what the Texans can do if they can get out of the hole. But yeah, with that being said, I think I also mentioned the Saints just hired Dennis Allen as well. But speaking of the Saints, Alvin Kamara was arrested shortly after the Pro Bowl for assault resulting in bodily harm. Ben, you wanted to talk about this, and then we have a fun little segment for us, short little segment after this question, and then we'll get into the rest of the news. But Ben, what you got?
Yeah, I, the whole Alvin Kamara situation, like I didn't expect him to be the one, but when you have the Pro Bowl down there in Vegas with, all these guys, coming off their seasons, wanting to relax, wanting to have fun, like I don't want to see you have to expect it, but like you kind of assume something is going to happen. But with that said, for anybody who doesn't know the whole situation, he was with a group of his friends, um, and he went to a nightclub. I don't know exactly why the fight started, but he got in a fight with this dude in the nightclub, and then on top of this NFL, beast. I mean, if anybody's seen him, he's a monster. On top of that, his friend or like the people he was in a group with, like also jumped into the fight, and it was a whole thing. I really hope they can get, I really hope Alvin can figure his stuff out because I'd love to see him play this next season, but I definitely think a suspension is going to come from this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it's a bad, representation of the NFL out in public and everything for players to go ahead and do stuff like that. It's crazy to say that somebody that, tied the rushing touchdown record just last season is also getting arrested the season directly after that one. So it's very it's pretty unfortunate for me, just because I mean, he was on my fantasy team, so it was like week in and week out I was definitely rooting for him.
And then
so
hold
yeah, go
on,
ahead.
real quick too. I want to jump in on the Lovey thing again. You guys, as a Bears fan, you guys know way more about Lovey Smith than majority of NFL fan bases. Um, it was a confusing hire to me though because Lovey Smith was the offensive coordinator for them this past year, I think.
He was
Offensive
defensive
or
coordinator.
defensive coordinator. So it's just very confused to me that they fired David Culley, who was their uh, head coach before Lovey, and then hired the dude that was right under the dude they just fired. So it was interesting to me that Lovey Smith was there out there, went down, but like you said, awesome to see it back in the league.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely was pretty surprised that, they made that fire as well. But I think the reason why they went with Lovey is because he's a great short-term option to be able
Yeah.
to lead a team defensively and everything, and hope that, he can potentially land that next defensive stud through the draft potentially, and maybe even making a big splash in free agency. I think letting JJ Watt was the right move, just because he's aging and everything. And, we saw how effective he was for the Cardinals this year. But, in other news, though, speaking of the Cardinals, Kyler Murray deleted his Cardinals stuff on his Instagram, all of his posts and everything related to the Cardinals. Ben, you also wanted to note a little something on that one.
Well, that one again, I just want to talk about it. Everybody's freaking out, and everybody's like, he's gonna get traded, like he's not gonna be a Cardinals. Um, but also it wasn't just the Cardinals. I mean, like he deleted photos of his dog. So I think the two most likely things, I think he's just doing like an Instagram
Cleanse.
restructure. I mean, everybody goes through and like changes it, but also I think more than anything, I just think he wants a new contract.
Right.
He's coming up on that. And I think he just wants a new contract more than
Yeah,
anything. I
no,
don't think he'll get traded or anything. I just think he wants his money.
it could be for leverage, but I mean, with social media being such a big impact on sports nowadays, I mean, I can understand why people are freaking out about it. Um,
Yeah.
but okay, so I did promise, and we did go a little bit out of order there, but the segue was just too good to pass up for the Cardinal thing. But so as for, back to the Alvin Kamara thing, as disappointing as that was, the only lesson to learn is that you shouldn't really mess with NFL players. And at the end of the day, I don't want to fight an NFL player. I know that you don't, but if we had to,
No.
who would you fight?
Okay, so this is difficult because my mind, like again, by the way, I don't think I could beat. Yeah, okay, that's not true. I think there's a few that I would actually be able to beat, but like this is like majority of the NFL players, like, come on now, these guys are professional athletes. But like this two I have like in in the back of my head, I think for sure I'd be able to beat.
Okay, what you got for me?
I think Jakeem Grant is just like the easy one just because he's so small. Like I'm no doubt that he's strong. Um, but like he's just so small. And like for people who don't know, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'2". I like to I'm 240 pounds. So I just think it's because one of those things I'm just bigger. So we're gonna go with Jakeem Grant, but I want to hear who yours is before I say the next one.
Well, see, when it comes to fighting, right? And I'm not a big fighter. I don't think I've ever been in a legitimate fight before. But if I were to choose a player, I would want somebody that's going to be at least a little bit even of a fight. I think and Ben knows this more than anybody, but I tore my ACL in my senior year of football. And, so with that being said, I'm going to pick somebody with some pretty terrible knees, and I'm going to go with Tariq Cohen because he's a small little dwarf. And I think that I might be able to bully my way into that fight. We both have bum knees, but I think that we'd be able to compete with each other as far as a fight. He's built. He's fast, but if I clock him right, maybe, just maybe, I could take him out. But I'm not fighting Alvin Kamara.
No.
After seeing what that guy looked like, that was awful.
Yeah, it was bad. The other one, and like this is gonna be like pretty obvious. Like this is just like we're gonna lump a whole group of people here together.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick this one out particularly because like I think I don't think there's no way I'd lose this fight. I think I would kick the ass out of Rodrigo Blankenship,
Oh,
the
that poor
kicker
guy, man.
for the Colts. Like he's such a small like nerd guy. Like even in an interview, they're like, "What do you like to do when you're not doing football?" And his answer was, "Play with my Legos." Like props to him, but like I think I
That guy's
could beat him
cool.
in a fight.
I
He's
want to hang
cool,
out
but
with that guy.
I think I'd be able to beat him up. And also, I would see like 90% of the kickers in the NFL I would be able to beat up just
Yeah.
because they're kickers. Like, I don't want to be like that guy, but like, let's be real here.
Yeah, I would say punters is my group of people. Literally any punter, with the exception of the Scottish Hammer from Cleveland. I think I'd be able to at least stand a chance with. I don't know how much weightlifting those guys do as far as like upper body. But I feel like as long as I don't catch some kind of roundhouse kick, I'm fine.
Exactly. That's my concern is like a roundhouse kick. But like everything besides that, like stay close and it's a wrap.
Right. So moving on, foreign games in Munich and London have been announced. That's kind of big for, anybody that's listening overseas. I think I want to briefly touch on this. I think that it would be interesting to see international teams, but that would be really, really difficult to plan out and everything with time zones and, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I definitely think that would be really interesting to see if they could somehow figure that out. Maybe incorporate, the Olympics are going on right now. Maybe we could incorporate that into like a summer type thing if we can get that amount of countries involved. But, obviously London's got a great fan base. I mean, they show up no matter the matchups and, they represent all their different teams and everything. So I'm excited to see all the rest of the NFL teams is what I meant. But
Yeah.
for foreign games in Munich, though, I'm really excited to see how fans are over there too, just to see their interest.
For the people who don't know what that is, it's Germany. This is the first German game. Again, we're used to the England games. We get a few England games every year. So we got 2 England games. We got a German game. We got a game in Mexico. But like you said, it'd be interesting to see how these Germans show out to these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine it. I don't know. Obviously the interest has to be pretty great if it's enough to land a game there. But with that, we're gonna segue to our next. Never mind. No, we're not. Okay, what's up?
This came out like this has obviously been speculated for months now, but Russ has publicly came out. Russell Wilson has publicly came out and said that like he's willing to get or like look at different jobs around the league outside of Seattle. So he's looking, he'd be okay with leaving. And then an athletic reporter came out yesterday saying that like if he had to guess, obviously these are reports, they don't know stuff or they don't know everything that's going on, but he said if he had to guess, Russ is not going to be a Seahawk next year. So it'll be interesting to see how the QB market is with all of these journeyman QBs hitting the market.
Yeah,
not
no,
journeymen,
definitely.
but like Aaron Rodgers, like all of them. It'll be interesting to see how that market turns out.
Right. And, a name that comes up every year as well that I think is worth noting as for, names that could potentially be moved this offseason. Derek Carr could be somebody that is, I don't think he'll be moved, but he's been coming up a lot. You never know. as one of those quarterbacks. I definitely think Jimmy Garoppolo is another option. And we'll get into
We'll get into that one.
yeah, we'll get into
There's a
that one.
teaser.
I do want to say, I think the whole Jimmy Garoppolo situation is like the Alex Smith situation that was in Kansas City. But we'll we're laughing right now because we got a segment lined up in a couple. Wait just a couple more minutes, but with that though, we are going to move to the Super Bowl pigskin pick'em. And Ben, I'm going to let you go first because my mind is just so clogged up with a bunch of, emotions going into this game. I don't know who I'm going to pick just yet. So I want to know your thoughts on this first before I say anything.
Yeah, and I don't want to give a score prediction because we'll get into this later on in our bold takes. This is like we were saying before, this game is going to be so much fun. I mean, for the first time in a long time, I feel like the NFL fans as a whole are split down the middle on like who they want to win because there's no bad guy. There's no Tom Brady. There's no Aaron Rodgers. So it's pretty split because people want to see Stafford win his championship after years in Detroit. And then how could you not like Joey Burrow? I mean, Joe Cool is cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I love him. That being said, I've been going back and forth. But we're gonna have a little fun. We're gonna say the Bengals win it. Do I, in my heart of hearts, do I believe that? No. I think the Rams probably have the better case of winning it. But I'm gonna say the Bengals pull it out some way, somehow. I think it'll happen.
Are we going to say Shooter kicks a last second field goal this time around too?
Maybe, dude. He's been on a roll here in the postseason.
Man, what a kicker. But okay, so as far as my emotions go, I mean, you really nailed it as far as, why they're so crazy because Stafford is a great dude. He deserves something. And I believe I stated it last podcast is that the Rams aren't going to be as good this year or next year, in my opinion. They have a lot of expiring contracts and aging players as well that I definitely can see leaving. There's not enough money to go around and you traded a lot of draft capital away. So, I think that that's a big issue as far as trying to get younger. And they definitely went all in this year to win. For that, I really don't know who I'm even going to root for this Super Bowl. I mean, honestly, okay, as far as my pick goes, and I'll just straight out say it right now, I'm going with the Rams just because it's a safer pick. I don't think that the Bengals offensive line is going to be able to hold up against this pass rush. I know that I've said this, the last, I believe, 2 matchups that the Bengals have played in, but I mean, how are you going to stop Aaron Donald is like the top question, right? And then on top of that, you also have Von Miller and Leonard Floyd. Like, how are you going to stop those guys too? And that's tough. You also have Jalen Ramsey on the outside that, you also need to worry about, and Eric Waddle as well. That's still playing at a pretty decent level, even after retirement. So I'm going to say Rams, and I'm going to say Stafford is going to get his ring. I'm not going to count out, the whole Joe Burrow thing right now, just because I believe he will be back. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough coming back for him just because I think, his route to the Super Bowl has been pretty, it could have been harder, but at the same time, it was still pretty impressive. I'm not going to say they got lucky by any means, but, I definitely think Joe Burrow with a couple more pieces, this Bengals team will win a Super Bowl. If, we're assuming that all these pieces stay put as well. But going safe here, I'm going Rams just because they went all in this year. They have too many good pieces on defense to stop, Joe Burrow. And with that, the offense is too crazy too. And I mean, with Eli Apple, Come on, man. You really think Eli Apple is going to do anything to Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford? But I will
Well,
say this really quick before you get some thoughts into
yeah.
this will be a higher scoring matchup than people think, though. It's not going to get a blowout. It's just going to be higher scoring just because the Rams have proven that, they are beatable. They make mistakes. I mean, this Bengals team beat the Chiefs and the Titans. They made it here. So, I mean, obviously, they're a good enough team to beat those teams. And I think they can make a case against the Rams. But I think the Rams is a safe pick here.
Yeah. And again, we'll get into my score and the hot takes, so I don't want to go too much into what I think, but people don't talk enough about Cincinnati Bengals slot cornerback Mike Hilton, who will probably be the guy that is honestly playing Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp plays in the slot. Mike Hilton has been killing it in the postseason. I don't think he's let up a single reception. Obviously, that's changing to this weekend against Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is going to dominate everybody, but I think that'll be a fun matchup to watch because Mike Hilton's a little slept on and he's played very well this postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. So going into that, your college corner, what you got for us, man? Like I said before, in all four of the previous podcast episodes, this isn't really my area of expertise. I think come this off season, I'm gonna find some, areas that I'll be able
I'm gonna make a
to.
draft expert out of you. You just wait.
We will do mock drafts the week of, the draft, probably just a little teaser for you. But as far as your college corner this week, give it to us, Ben.
Yeah. So the college bowl season, so to speak, is kind of coming to an end. Senior Bowl came to an end. Shrine Bowls came to an end. So there's not a lot of news really going around the NCAA / draft and everything. Just a couple things. Caleb Williams, this happened 2 weeks ago, so I missed talking about it last week. Went to USC. That's going to be very fun because he's going to run the NFL in 2 to 3 years. He's probably going to be the best quarterback in college next year, maybe outside of Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. So that'll be interesting. But he followed his head coach, Lincoln Riley, and Lincoln Riley is just a menace. Lincoln Riley came out talking about the portal and how the portal is, going to start getting bad for football or for college football. It's really ironic because he was, half of his team came from the college portal this year because people going from Oklahoma to USC. But that's just a little bit there. But this is where this story is going to get a little crazy, going to keep it very PG as possible. But Michigan's OC left. Michigan, the story behind Michigan's OC is really weird. I'm going to try to keep it as PG as possible. But he left. He left Michigan. Kind of really shocking. Michigan football is kind of in shambles right now, or at least it's what it looks like from the outside. But he had he had the top ranked offense in college football. He put up 35 points a game, which is number one ranked in football, or college football. And he won assistant coach of the year in the NCAA. But then he up and left to Miami. And Miami, if you followed college football, Miami is not what they used to be. He definitely shouldn't have left. And everybody was very, very confused as to why he left. So this story needs a little bit of backstory to it. Last year's recruiting class, Michigan had a very good wide receiver sign or commit and sign. So he was signed like he was going to the University of Michigan. And then like he was there on campus for like a week. And then he entered the transfer portal and went to Texas. His name is Xavier Worthy. and everybody was really confused why he left and what happened, but we never really got the story behind that. So now set that story off to the side. So this year, Josh Gaddis ended up coming out after he left saying he left because the higher ups in the athletic department at Michigan were not showing him the love he wanted. He didn't get the contract he wanted. And he was really mad that he got taken off the recruiting trail this year. And everybody was really shocked. Like, why did you take your OC off the recruiting trail? Like, that's just something that doesn't happen. That he should be your main recruiter when it comes to offense. And then just a few days following that, it came out that he got taken off the recruiting trail because he had an affair with Xavier Worthy's mom. So that's why Xavier Worthy left, and we're now figuring this out. So that's why Xavier Worthy left for Texas this year. And then that's why Josh Gaddis got taken off of the recruiting cycle, which is just, I mean, that is unheard of, unprofessional. I don't know how that happened. And I love Josh Gaddis, but if he's going to do stuff like that, I don't think he belongs in college football at all. I mean, you're taking advantage of people's families and it's wrong. But that was a big thing in college football this week. But on more of an NFL note, we got the combine invites. It's everybody who we thought they were, or everybody we thought was going. We're going. The top, 325 prospects are going into the draft. One shocker that I'm really, or not the draft, the combine, but one shocker for the combine that I was really happy he got in. I didn't think he was going to. Is EJ Perry. He's a quarterback for the Brown University, the Ivy League school, which this is the first time in like 20 years that an Ivy League QBs got invited to the combine. I think you'll probably see him go late, probably 6th or 7th round, but I'm really, really happy he got invited because he killed the Ivy League this year. And then another player I was kind of disappointed that didn't get invited is Middle Tennessee's safety, Reed Blankenship. I thought he deserved it, especially how he played at the Shrine Bowl this year. But other than that, the combine is, everybody who we thought was going to make it, made it. Everybody we didn't think was going to make it, didn't make it. But that's about it. There's not a lot of college news, and there probably won't be until, training camp starts for them.
So with that, lots of good information. Ben and I, we like to argue a lot. And the thing is that, off the camera and off of the podcast, we get to talk about we still talk about football still. And, it's not just a once a week thing, but this week we were talking about Eric Bieniemy and why he doesn't have a job. And so before we dive in like deep with that, I guess I could just explain the situation. My point of view on it. Okay, let me reword this. That way I can explain the situation first. That way people can form their own opinions, and then I'll tell you guys my point of view, which will be repeated most of the time for our argument that we're about to have. So I think, the situation is whether or not Eric Bieniemy gets credit developing Patrick Mahomes.
See, you're already messing this up. Whether or not Matt Nagy / Eric, who gets a majority of the credit, because I think they both get credit for it. But continue. Who gets majority?
Okay. Let me just start off by saying, because we did say, the whole this is how, Eric Bieniemy doesn't have a job. And, why? Because Ben's so big on Eric Bieniemy. And, I said, well, look, I think it's strictly because Eric Bieniemy has been given a great offense that he, if you look at, oh man, what's his name? Josh McDaniels that just got hired by the Raiders.
Yeah.
You look at him and everything, and he had a brief stint with the Broncos after the Patriots had a long winning streak and record-breaking season and everything. And so not too many people remember that just because of how awful of a run that was. And it's because he didn't have the offensive pieces that he did in New England. And so I said to Ben that this is along the same lines as to why Eric Bieniemy shouldn't have a job. Or at least might not have a job because teams are afraid that the Josh McDaniels predicament could happen again.
Yeah, let me step in here too. This is not what we are arguing about. I agreed with what he was saying, but I still think he deserves a job. But let's continue because what he's saying is kind of important to his argument. But
yeah. So I just wanted to explain where this started first. And so when I said the whole, this is why, he was given a great offense, blah, blah, blah. And, Patrick Mahomes was doing great prior to, him, starting out with Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator. And that's where Ben stepped in and said that Patrick Mahomes wasn't that impressive his rookie year. And so before I get into the argument, just kind of unlock the cage, what I do want to say is that, Patrick Mahomes was in no way, shape, or form an impressive college scout coming into the draft. And if you look at every mock draft, literally, there's no way he's going in the top 3. Whereas if you look at remock drafts after, hindsight's always 2020, Bears would be getting, Patrick Mahomes potentially, or somebody else would be, just looking back on it now, nobody expected Patrick Mahomes to be this good. And so it all comes down to who developed him. Now, if you go back and look at, just give me just a couple more minutes.
You're good.
So if you go back and look at, who scouted him in the first place and who necessarily wanted Patrick Mahomes and, said, who was a project, who was going to be a stud, and then who is going to be, one of those once in a lifetime players. And that was exactly what Matt Nagy had to say. And so Matt Nagy's last year in Kansas City was the first year in Mitch Trubisky's career. Mitch Trubisky was coached by John Fox at the time. Matt Nagy is still the offensive coordinator and still had a lot of control with the quarterbacks in Kansas City in 2017. So with that being said, when it goes into the draft and nobody expected, Patrick Mahomes to be that kind of guy, Matt Nagy said Mitch Trubisky was going to be the project. Deshaun Watson is going to be that stud. And, or not this. Well, I mean, he's going to be good, but then Patrick Mahomes is going to be that generational quarterback. So with all of that, being said, I was saying that Matt Nagy should get a lot of or at least a lot more of the credit for developing Patrick Mahomes, considering, I understand that, who was the starting quarterback, Alex Smith was the starting quarterback during Patrick Mahomes' career or his rookie season of his career. And, I understand that Patrick Mahomes only had one start that year too. I also understand that Patrick Mahomes didn't do that bad in his first start. I don't believe he had a touchdown, but I do remember that he had over 250 yards and 1 interception in a game against the Broncos that year. I do want to say, I think Matt Nagy, given the fact that he was, offensive coordinator and he also had pretty good influence on the quarterbacks, that yes, he had a say in the development, considering Eric Bieniemy at the time was the running backs coach for the Chiefs at that point in time. I think I laid the groundwork out perfectly. I don't think I missed out on anything, but Ben, please scream at me for a couple minutes so I can get a breather in because I'm out of shape.
All right. So again, I think this is very, very important to know. I think there needs to be a very clear separation between who gets credit for him being in the building and who gets credit to develop him. Awesome, we can say, Matt Nagy, if he was pounding the table for Patrick Mahomes to become his chief, give him credit for that. I'm not trying to fight that. But there's a difference between who got him in the building and who developed him. And real quick, I'm going to throw this up here. According to the NFL, and this is the draft report that the NFL had on him, they were saying he was supposed to be a starter within the first. They said will be a starter within the first 2 seasons. So we knew that. So it's not like he was this the god awful guy coming out and he turned great. And then the overview is Mahomes is big, confident quarterback who will bring a variety of physical tools to the party, but he's developed bad habits and skills. And they later go on to say that he possesses everything you'd want in a quarterback, huge arm, and the tools are there, but he needs development. So it's not like this guy was bad and he came out of nowhere. Everybody knew Mahomes was going to be great if they got into the right scheme. And I don't think Mahomes played particularly bad in his first start. Like you said, he had a 62% completion percentage. He had 284 yards, didn't have a touchdown, and threw an interception. And you bring up the point, Eric Bieniemy being this, or the running back coach and everything. That's awesome. But then the year he needed to start, the year that he started, Nagy was gone. He developed in the offseason into the player that he is now. Like, I don't understand. Like, awesome, he was a running back coach his first year when he wasn't playing. I don't think him being a running back coach has anything to use as an argument against him being this great person. Because as soon as he was the offensive coordinator, was right when Patrick Mahomes started. And that's the offseason that he was the undoubted starter. And that's when he's played well. That's when Matt Nagy left. I don't understand how you can credit Matt Nagy for majority of his development if he was gone.
Okay. So with that,
he was gone.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Since, Matt Nagy being gone has everything to do with Eric Bieniemy being that key person in the development, right? That's what you're saying? Because Matt Nagy's gone, it means that Eric Bieniemy was that key piece since Patrick Mahomes threw for like 50 touchdowns in that year, right?
Sure.
If Eric Bieniemy was a key piece in Mahomes' development, why did Mike Kafka, the quarterback's coach in 2018, get promoted to passing game coordinator after Bieniemy's first year at offensive coordinator? Do you want to know?
Sure.
It's because the coaching staff knew Bieniemy wasn't great at scheming Mahomes. They didn't have a passing game coordinator for Bieniemy's first season, so they upgraded or promoted Mike Kafka and let him do that. That way he could help out Bieniemy and everything. Because let me just be honest with you. I'm not going to say that Bieniemy doesn't have a crucial role, but I will definitely say, like, he obviously needed help if, he just needed that passing game coordinator. And, you can credit Mike Kafka then if you want. But I definitely would say Matt Nagy at least gets more props than Eric Bieniemy in terms of Patrick Mahomes in general.
I think that's a flawed argument because he ended up the first year he was starting, he threw for 50 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Tell me he struggled to put him in the right place. The dude won MVP that year. So you can't say Eric Bieniemy was struggling at all doing his job. I mean, he won the MVP and put up 50 touchdowns that year. To say that Mike Kafka, was the saving piece is just dead wrong, because the next year he threw for just over half the amount of touchdowns he threw for the year before. He threw 26 touchdowns the year after versus 50. To say Mike Kafka was the key piece there is wrong. Because as soon as Eric Bieniemy got his hands on to Patrick Mahomes, he threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. I think that's a very simple math. He played, it was his first start. You can't judge Mahomes off of his first start. He was meh. But then the offseason he worked, his very first offseason he got, a real offseason, because rookie offseason, we all know about that. His first offseason he got with Eric Bieniemy, he threw for 50 touchdowns. I don't know how you can say Matt Nagy had anything to do with that, because Matt Nagy was out of the building.
I will say this though, and to anybody listening that I believe has a football knowledge, that understands the game, I believe Andy Reid is more to credit than either Matt Nagy or Eric Bieniemy. I think Andy Reid is the real mastermind behind all of it. But I do believe there are 4 people that you can credit, including Andy Reid, and that's Matt Nagy, Corey Mathey, which is the assistant quarterbacks coach in 2017, and Alex Smith. Patrick Mahomes even said himself that Alex Smith played a crucial role in getting him that development, because he helped at the end of the day trying to keep his tension, all of the like the pressure and everything of the game that comes with it and everything. Like, he was the guy to teach him like how to do that. He also taught him how to I'm reading an article right now that's saying everything.
And to that point, like, that's awesome. But the argument is who gets more credit, Nagy or Bieniemy? Eric.
I'm just saying Bieniemy should be ruled out altogether because he's a running backs coach, man. If
But
anything, you can credit him.
Ryan, what is the most
credit him
important
more on
position
Kareem
on
Hunt?
What is the most important position on offense?
Right, I know, but there's
So
obviously,
you would assume the offensive coordinator has to work with the quarterback. So how can you say because he wasn't, just because he doesn't specialize in it doesn't mean he didn't develop him? Again, this is a point that I made the other day.
Let me just say
Harbaugh
this.
Doesn't have anything to do with Lamar Jackson's development because he's a special teams coach.
No, because he's a head coach and that's his job to develop any possible player that he can. But the thing
is
it's
the offensive coordinator's job to develop anybody on offense.
Yeah,
and
but it was already developed.
The most important person on offense.
He was already developed.
How can you say he was already developed?
He was already developed by Alex Smith, Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, and Corey Mathey. If you look into this, man, okay, and I know that he's probably listening, but think of Coach Tyler Milby, right? Linebackers coach for the longest time. You don't think he had to do just a little bit more reading up or whatever on, safeties or corners, to try and understand more on that situation than just linebackers, right? He obviously still specializes on linebackers and can probably, I would be willing to bet that he could probably get a linebacker to D1 schools faster than he could a safety to a D1 school. And I'm not discrediting him on that because I think he's a fantastic coach, but I definitely think that he would be probably more likely to do that just because he specializes in that. I feel like he could develop a linebacker quicker in a 1-year jump than, a safety. So as far as Eric Bieniemy goes, as far as running backs go, look at, Kareem Hunt. I mean, he was player of the year, like, for that team. I mean, he was phenomenal for that team before he got in trouble. I mean, think about it. And I'm sure that you know this because, like, think about fantasy football for a second. And I'm not going to say argue with fantasy football, but I'm just saying, I mean, literally everybody wanted Kareem Hunt on their team when he was with the Chiefs. When they found out like he was going to get cut or whatever, it's like whoever's getting him is going to get a stud. And I mean, I think that it's been underwhelming for Cleveland since he's been there. He hasn't by any means played as well as he did with the Chiefs, but he's also playing behind Nick Chubb. But I think, you could credit Bieniemy more on Hunt than you could Mahomes because of that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. He's awesome. He specializes in running backs. And just because you're better at developing a running back position doesn't mean that you can't develop a quarterback. I still don't understand. Like, he's a running back coach. That's awesome.
You're right.
That's awesome. But just because he's a running back coach doesn't mean he didn't have to work with Patrick Mahomes. Again, he's offensive coordinator. The quarterback is the most important position in all of sports, let alone on offense. So to tell me the offensive coordinator of 4 years didn't have anything to do with the development of the MVP of the next year is just wrong.
I definitely think that I mean, obviously Bieniemy played a key role in, maybe even like I I just can't understand why you would say Bieniemy over Matt Nagy just because Matt Nagy was the guy that got him there in the first place. And my main argument is, I think the reason why they traded Alex Smith is because they knew that he was developed enough to play and they had the enough faith in Patrick Mahomes to be able to trade him away and be like, all right, this is our guy from now on. Like, I feel like if you are that confident in that, like, okay, think about the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, right? So, you could think about how, Jimmy Garoppolo, it's up in the air right now whether or not he gets traded. At the end of the game for when the 49ers got eliminated, Joe Buck did say like that could be Jimmy Garoppolo's last game as a 49er. But like, we don't know that. We don't know if there's going to be any team that bites on him. We don't know if the 49ers are ready to get past him yet. We don't know if they're, and I'm not going to relate Trey Lance to Patrick Mahomes in terms of skill level, because that's not even close. I mean, I definitely think Patrick Mahomes is a generational talent that is basically once in a lifetime. Sorry, I'm dropping this thing. But I really do think, you could say, I mean, honestly, if, the 49ers were to trade Jimmy Garoppolo as soon as trades can open up, right? That would probably tell people like, okay, so it's Trey Lance's time. And I'm guaranteeing you like ESPN and, Sports Center and, all like NFL and all of those social media accounts and whatever would post pictures of Trey Lance instead of, they'd just be like, it's Trey Lance's job now. It's all him. It's his, opportunity now. And that would be that leading story. So that was the same exact thing for the Chiefs because they had enough faith in Patrick Mahomes in that first year to go in and just be like, all right, look, because we had these coaches develop, this generational player, like I believe that Patrick Mahomes can lead us to that point. I mean, in week 17 of that 2017 season, I mean, he didn't play awful against that Broncos team that had to have given them hope. I mean,
but he didn't play good. And my point to that again is before Trey Lance even put on a football field, the night he was drafted, if we're going to use Trey Lance as an example, the night he was drafted, people are saying he's going to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers next year. If you draft a quarterback in your first round, it will always, whether he starts that year or comes in the next year, that is always the plan. Even if he played like dog shit, I'm sorry for the cursing, but I'm willing to bet that they still would have done it because the plan is always you don't draft unless you're Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. You don't draft a quarterback in the first round to not play him later on.
No, that makes, I mean, I don't know. End of story. Wrap up your closing thoughts, because I'm gonna put a poll and everything together when this comes out and people are gonna be able to vote on it or whatever after hearing this. But Ben, give me your closing statements. I will give mine, and then we'll move on to our 3 bold takes.
Again, I think you can give the credit for I think you can give the credit to Matt Nagy to getting Patrick Mahomes in the building, and that's awesome. Very, very happy. You have to give him credit for that. Again, without Matt Nagy, he would not have been in the building. But that doesn't mean Matt Nagy had anything to do with the offseason development of Patrick Mahomes. And the jump he made from that game to even the first game the next year is so exponential that I think it's crazy that you think Nagy has anything to do with that, because the jump from year 1 to year 2 was so big. You have to say it was Eric Bieniemy, because like Nagy was not even in the building. Nagy left to be the Bears head coach that offseason before he became the superstar that we know it. So his first real offseason that he had with Eric Bieniemy, he exploded. I don't understand how Matt Nagy has anything to relate to that. Because who was the coach that was in there when he got good? Eric Bieniemy. Matt Nagy was nowhere to be seen. I'll leave it at that.
Was it Eric Bieniemy or was it Mike Kafka, the quarterback's coach? At the end of the day, who was it? Because honestly,
okay, but the argument isn't because if it came down to it, you give
which
it to
one
Andy
makes
Reid.
more sense?
You give it okay, but listen to me. If you come down to it, you give it to Andy Reid. But we're not fighting over that. We're arguing over that.
Right.
We're arguing Matt Nagy or Bieniemy.
I'm saying
Bieniemy because it's very simple. Bieniemy was in the building. So that's why you have to give it to Bieniemy over Nagy. Like Nagy wasn't even there. So I don't
gotta
understand
give it to the quarterback's coach, man.
Okay, we're talking about Nagy versus
for example,
Bieniemy, dude.
For example, I definitely credit the Bills quarterback coach more over than, Brian Daboll. Absolutely.
We're talking about Bieniemy.
It's the same situation. I mean, think of the gap between one and two. The first year, Josh Allen was awful. I mean, that was a terrible rookie season. You bring in a new quarterback's coach, he's a stud. Who gets credit? The offensive coordinator or the quarterback's coach? The offensive coordinator that schemes up a power run offense, or the quarterback's coach that got Josh Allen to get a better passing percentage and, better, completion percentage or more yards, more of a touchdown to interception. I mean, think about that, man. Would you rather have that Brian Daboll offense that he can get up, that he can scheme up that power run, right? Well, you can compare that right up there to Eric Bieniemy that can scheme up that good run for Kareem Hunt to explode and go towards that perfect, Kareem Hunt offense that we know he ran in, Kansas City. Think about that for
the quarterback coach.
No, in 2017,
quarterback coach.
In 2017, Ben, listen to this. Matt Nagy was a former quarterback. Let me tell you.
Okay,
Corey
but we're
Mathey,
talking about the quarterback.
No.
We're talking
Ben. Corey Mathey was an assistant quarterback's coach. Do you know who the quarterback's coach was in 2017?
I'm going to.
There wasn't one because Matt Nagy was a quarterback and he helped develop Patrick Mahomes. End of story. That's my closing statement. I mean, seriously, think about that. It makes all the sense in the world. I'll let you get a couple more minutes to try and make some form of closing statement before we do the three bold takes. But give me one more, and then we'll segue to.
And again, when it comes down to it, Reid gets it. Andy Reid, it's Andy Reid. But if we're deciding between Bieniemy and Nagy,
coach,
Nagy was in coach. It does the offensive coordinator.
Matt Nagy was a former quarterback that helped develop quarterbacks. I mean,
and Patrick Mahomes got good when Bieniemy was on the field or when Bieniemy was the OC. I think it's simple. Bieniemy was the coach when Patrick Mahomes got good.
Hey, Ben,
so if we're deciding between the two of them, it has to be Eric Bieniemy. I don't like Matt Nagy was not in the building, and that is my sticking point. Like, that's awesome. Matt Nagy could be the quarterback guru of the world. If he's not coaching him, then he doesn't get the credit because he wasn't in the building.
Ben, do you know who the quarterback's coach was before Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator? For 2 years? Matt freaking Nagy, dude. When he got promoted,
I don't understand that. It doesn't matter.
Well, shut up and listen then. Just listen.
He was playing good.
Just listen. The second that I guarantee you this is how it worked out. The second that he got the promotion to offensive coordinator, when they got Patrick Mahomes, I can guarantee you he said, okay, when I take this job, I would like at least some part in developing this young quarterback if we were to get them. Okay, cool. You can get the offensive coordinator job and then you'll get an assistant quarterback's coach. That's why it says specifically assistant quarterbacks coach. That's why Matt Nagy helped develop him, because he was an offensive coordinator that also had a hand in developing the quarterbacks. Does that make sense?
Again, yes, and that's awesome. Again, Matt Nagy should get some of the credit for it. Who was the starting quarterback the year Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator? Alex Smith. He was working with no doubt he was working with Patrick Mahomes, but I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar that he was working with Alex Smith 95% of the time.
Oh my God, dude.
Dude, why? Listen, why would you? They had Super Bowl aspirations that year. You're not spending time. Hold on. You're not spending time with this guy when you have Super Bowl aspirations. And I'm going to leave it at this. The year Patrick Mahomes was the MVP and threw for 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, Eric Bieniemy was the one who coached him that offseason.
Dude. Okay. Bro, right. It literally makes no sense how you're telling me they have Super Bowl aspirations with Alex Smith, yet they draft a quarterback in the first round. And so we're going to spend 0.5% of our time with that new rookie that we just drafted and need to develop, so that when Eric Smith is traded or decides to leave or whatever, that we have this solid option. But no, we're going to spend 0.5% of our time towards this quarterback and developing this quarterback because I'm Matt Nagy and I'm the offensive coordinator and that's what I'm supposed to do. No, you spend time with the quarterback room, okay, bro. You don't spend time with just one sole quarterback.
I understand that.
But that's not what you said.
If he was the one who did the development, why did he throw for 1 interceptions and 0 touchdowns when he was the offensive coordinator? Because he made a huge, you can give him the credit for that first year. That's awesome. But the leap he took from year 1 to year 2 is exponential. You can give Matt Nagy the credit for it in year 1. That's awesome. I'm not arguing that Matt Nagy, I'm sure was in his ear, but the jump from year 1 to year 2 is huge. Ginormous. And Matt Nagy was no longer in the building when that jump happened.
Bro,
Am I wrong?
Not even my argument, since Matt Nagy wasn't in the building, my argument is that it wasn't just Matt Nagy then. It's also Mike Kafka that has more.
I understand that, but if we're deciding between the two of them, who was there and who wasn't when he made the jump? And I'll leave it at this, as much as this gets me extraordinarily heated. Who was in the building when he made the jump from year 1 to year 2? Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, okay. But who was the quarterback's coach? Who was spending all of their time with the quarterbacks?
The offensive coordinator? We just went over this.
Mike Kafka.
The offensive coordinator.
The quarterback's coach, right? Who is the running back? So if you're
going to make the argument about this young quarterback and how Matt Nagy had to have the development with this young quarterback because they drafted him too, why can you make that same exact argument for Eric Bieniemy, as if not a stronger argument, because he was going to be the starting quarterback. So
no, that's not my argument. My argument is, yes, Eric Bieniemy spent time with him. Yes, he helped develop him. No, he doesn't deserve all the credit because he's a running backs coach.
I didn't say he deserves all the credit. I just said he deserves more.
No, it doesn't. It shouldn't be more credit than Matt Nagy. It should be just strictly, or it shouldn't be Eric Bieniemy. It should be strictly Matt Nagy, or at least majority of it Matt Nagy, or at least majority of it Matt Nagy and the quarterbacks coach in 2018, Mike. I mean, seriously, dude, Mike Kafka is the guy. That's the dude. He's a new quarterbacks coach. That's the guy that spent literally all of his time with Patrick Mahomes. It's literally the first 2 years. It's Matt Nagy and Mike Kafka. With that, we're going to 3 bold takes. Okay, we're gonna end it at that because we've been bashing heads for about a half hour on that one. So Ben, what's your 3 bold takes?
I need a breather real quick. My
I'll,
head is pounding with how frustrated I am.
well, I'll go first then. I'm gonna say, okay, first off, Mike Thomas and Alvin Kamara will be either traded or cut this offseason. This offseason is going to be good. And I want everybody to know listening to
The two
this,
combined, like the both of them or just one of them?
both of them. Both of them are going to be
Okay.
gone. Number 2, when, and it will be when Aaron Rodgers gets traded, it won't go as well as us Bears fans think it will.
Okay.
And then number 3 is Kyler Murray isn't going anywhere. I mean, we already kind of talked about it. So
see, this is funny because I see where you're coming from with the Mike Thomas thing, just because he's making so much money this year, and they're in the Saints are 72 or $78 million over the cap. So that would make sense, but I don't think anything's happening with Kamara. So I disagree there. I agree with the Murray take. So process of elimination will go with
Aaron Rodgers.
Which is ironic because I have a completely opposite take from that one. But hit me with it.
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded, but it's going to be for a quarterback that Chicago Bears fans aren't going to want to play against. And I mean, you think about it, think about all the different quarterbacks that we mentioned before that are on that trade block. It's, I don't know, man. I mean, it's hard to think about right now. Obviously the 49ers aren't going to be in play for Aaron because they have Trey Lance. Although if they don't think he's ready, but they do want to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, that might be an option, but I don't see them as a clear contender. I think Pittsburgh could be a play in it, depending on what the trade options could be, like what they have to offer. You have Big Ben retiring, and so they don't really have that great of a quarterback room. So I guess that wouldn't be as threatening to Bears fans, depending on what that piece is that they decide to move. Another option that I think would be interesting is Cleveland. With Baker Mayfield and everything.
Yes.
I don't think that Baker's going to be that scary guy. I think I would laugh if Baker comes to our division. I'm going to come up with more teams. I'm going to let you talk for a little bit, and then I'll talk after I brainstorm a little bit.
One thing I want to add, I think it's ironic that you were saying you're not going to be scared if Baker goes to the Bears after we had a whole dispute on how I think Baker's average, or not the Bears, the Packers, which I think I want to say proves a point. But like, if you're not scared of Baker,
no. He's going to be really, really good next season, but I'm not going to be scared going into it. I'm just going to be like, Baker Mayfield. Okay. Like,
exactly.
If I think about it right now, I root for the Browns. I want him to do good for the Browns. Because of that, I think he'll blossom after surgery. But right now, if you look at it against like, oh man, Baker Mayfield's going to be the next Packer quarterback, and like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, look at his last season. Let's point and laugh at this guy. Like, I mean, honestly, that's not intimidating looking at last year's stats. And then his first year also isn't that great. But I'm still standing by it. I definitely think he's going to prove me wrong if that does happen. But are you finished with that, your statement? Because I kind of cut you off. Okay, go for it.
No. I think, and again, I'm going to say if, because this is going to piggyback off of one of my bold takes, which I'm assuming you're probably going to pick this one as well. But I have two like really interesting bold takes, so we'll see which one you go with.
Wait, are you going through yours right now?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But I'm saying what I'm going to say is going to piggyback off what I am, like what my bold take is.
Okay, yeah.
Again, interesting. I'm going to say if the Packers trade him. I think if they trade him, it's going to just be um for picks and for like players. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback just because they have Jordan Love waiting in the wings. Again, we talked about this with Patrick Mahomes. Not going to re-kittle that, but you draft a quarterback in the first round to step in after the quarterback you have already is gone. So I think if they trade Aaron Rodgers, they're at least going to wait a year and try to ride it out with Jordan Love. So I think if they trade him, it's not going to, I don't think another quarterback is going to, I think you might see maybe like a Mitch Trubisky or somebody come in, but I think Jordan Love is going to be their quarterback if they trade Aaron
Oh my
Rodgers.
God. I just had a vision that I don't want. Judging by, I think you know where I'm going with this. Judging
Patrick
by,
Mahomes or
no.
Mitch Trubisky lighting up the Bears.
Yeah. That's awful. That's awful. Because I told you guys, like, listen, Mitch Trubisky is not going to be the person that you want to mess with next season. The second that he goes somewhere else, dude, he's going to be good. If Mitch Trubisky comes back to Chicago wearing Green Bay colors and he lights us up with a franchise tag Devontae Adams, I might cry. Like, I might cry.
That's my sticking point there. I think if Aaron Rodgers leaves, I don't think Devontae Adams is coming back. Like, they can be like, oh, we're going to franchise tag you. But it's happened numerous times. I mean, you've even seen it with quarterbacks drafted right out of the draft with Eli Manning. I think that if Aaron Rodgers is leaving, Devontae Smith is going to be like, you can franchise tag me, but I'm not going to play. So I think if Rodgers is leaving, Devontae Adams is gone. Like, they can try to franchise tag him, but I think he's like, I'm going to sit out. So I think if he's gone, you don't have to worry about Mitch Trubisky killing you guys with Devontae Adams.
So here, let me name off some potential candidates that would be interesting. And I'm going to start off with a big home run candidate, and I would say Seattle. And it would be a package.
That's the only case that I'll agree with you on. I feel like if they trade him to Seattle, you'll see Russ come. But again, like I said, any other team, I think it'll be Jordan Love. But I will agree with you on the Seattle thing.
Right. I think, if you're seeing Aaron Rodgers go, you might see Russell Wilson come into Green Bay, and that's terrifying to think about. I think Rodgers has plenty of deep threats in Seattle with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. He also has Chris Carson that could potentially be coming back. I don't know what his situation is, to be honest with you, but if he were to come back, that's a pretty solid option at running back. Also, I do want to point out running back is a pretty, in my opinion, replaceable position. And I think that they could also find the next great Seattle running back in the draft. Another fun situation that I think could potentially be dangerous, but on paper doesn't necessarily seem to be that crazy, is Aaron Rodgers going to the Dolphins. I think if he were to go to Miami and have Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle, that's great. And, I definitely think that those are two solid pieces, but then Tua coming to Green Bay, I think he would definitely have to adjust to the weather. But, I'm also a big advocate on saying that weather shouldn't play into quarterback play, considering they have away games also. I definitely believe that Tua has potential to be great under the right coaching staff and everything. I feel like last year was awful for his mental, and because of that, it affected his play. And then one last one before I get to you, your statement on this that I think you're going to hate. But there's one team that's been in the running for Russell Wilson that I will say would be crazy with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to say your Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how would you feel if Aaron Rodgers went to Philly?
This is I know I'm going to get screamed at for this. But
You're gonna tell me you don't want him.
Philly's roster is not ready to compete. They're awesome, but there still needs to be development. Like making the playoffs his first year is a huge step, but he's not ready to compete. He's not ready to, or the roster's not ready to compete and win a Super Bowl. We just don't have their Super Bowl ready roster. And with Aaron Rodgers being as old as he is, any team that's going to trade for him is instantly turned into a win now mode. And we do not have a win now roster. So I can't see him coming to Philly. And honestly, if it was up to me, I don't want him in Philly. You're going to have to give up way too much for him. And our roster is just not ready for it. And the picks we'd use to get our roster ready for win now is the picks we'd be using to trade him.
I would like to say, I think, in terms of other quarterbacks coming into Green Bay, I would like to say that it would really have to take some gymnastics with the whole financial thing going on in Green Bay, along with Aaron Rodgers' massive contract and, stuff like that. But if they were to trade him, I could see maybe, him going to Denver and then, Green Bay getting some picks in return and like a huge haul for, Aaron Rodgers. And I definitely think, that would be disastrous for Bears fans, unless Green Bay were to pick a quarterback in this draft, which I know I'm not a big draft guy. I know I'm not a big college football guy, but I will tell you there is not a single starting caliber quarterback in that draft, in my opinion. But
that's a report coming out too. I disagree with that report. I think Kenny Pickett is starting. I think Kenny Pickett can come in and start. I think he can come in and put up amazing numbers. No. And that's why I'm lower on Kenny Pickett if you listen to the last episode.
Right. I think if Green Bay were to want to do something in the draft, and again, I think that it would involve some draft picks, but if it were going to be a disastrous situation, I think they would let Devontae Adams walk or at least franchise tag him, trade Aaron Rodgers for future firsts and maybe a second round somewhere for this year, and then, a couple late round picks or whatever. But that second round pick would be used to draft somebody like David Bell that I would want on the Bears. And just understanding how things work out for us Bears fans is that the Packers would probably pick like the pick literally right in front of us. So I don't know. It's just disastrous. That would be awful to even think about. But Ben, I'm gonna cut us off as far as my three bold takes, because our gridiron goofs this week is going to be fun. But before we get to that, I want to get to your three bold takes as well. So what you
got? Again, I think if they end up going the young quarterback route, like I think they'll just go with Jordan Love. They drafted him. Obviously, they saw something in him. That's why they drafted him. It's hard for me to see them drafting a quarterback this year in this draft because they have Jordan Love, or go with somebody like Tua just because they have their young quarterback here. So that's why it's just hard for me to see another quarterback coming in unless it's Russ. Because if they're going the young quarterback route, they're going to do it with Jordan Love.
Yeah, it makes sense. But as for your three bold takes, what you got?
So I'm going to save the one that I think you're going to end up picking for last. The really simple one, I think Jimmy is going to be a Steeler. I think Jimmy Garoppolo's.
Oh, man.
I think Jimmy is going to be a Steeler. I think the Steelers have a win now roster. So I think Jimmy's going to be a Steeler unless they go after Aaron Rodgers. That's
man.
one. And then here are the two ones that I really like. I think the Super Bowl is going to have a less than 45 combined points scored between the two teams. Bets. Yeah. I don't know what the line is. I'm actually really interested to see what that line is, but I think it's going to be lower scoring than what people actually think. which I think is really ironic because you were saying you think it's be high scoring.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be less than 45 combined points.
Okay.
So I did the math there. That's less than that's right there with 3 touchdowns and a field goal for each team. So that's just under that. And then my last one is I think the Packers keep both Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
Whoa. Hold on a minute there, bud. Yeah, no, obviously, yeah, the Packer one, because there's no way that's happening, but go for it.
Again, Aaron is under contract for another year, so they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to pay him any money. And I think Devontae Adams, like I said, I think as long as Aaron Rodgers is in Green Bay, Adams is staying there. So he's a tag along or an extra to Rodgers. And I think even though everything is going on with Aaron Rodgers disagreeing with the Jordan Love thing, I think he truly does love Green Bay. And I think he really, really wants to prove to people that he can win another Super Bowl, because you see all these jokes, how they get out in the first round. I think he wants to prove to people that he can win a Super Bowl there. I think with how well they played in the regular season, I think he could stay.
No. No. And here's why. Devontae Adams wants a big contract. This is his year to do it. And if he doesn't get it from Green Bay, he's going to sit, like you mentioned. It's not going to be a debate. He is
He'll play
aging.
with Aaron Rodgers.
He will sit because Aaron Rodgers will sit as well. They will take a stand together. And here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers said that he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. If Devontae Adams isn't going to play because he wants that big contract instead of the franchise tag, then Aaron Rodgers is going to be like, well, if he's not playing, I'm a part of a rebuild anyway, so I don't want to be here. And until you trade me or give him his deal, then I'm not playing either. So they're both going to sit, right?
That's my thing. I think they're ready to compete now, so it's not going to be a rebuild. And even if Devontae Adams waits another year, he can still go out in next year's free agency and still get that huge contract. I think as long as Rodgers is the quarterback there, and again, this hinges on Rodgers being there. If Rodgers isn't playing, then Adams is leaving. So I'm saying as long as Rodgers is coming back, as I'm going to do this, Adams is going to come along.
I will tell you right now, the way there's going to happen one of two ways. It's going to happen that first option that I just told you about, or it's going to happen with Devontae Adams sitting out because he's not getting that deal, and Aaron Rodgers also sitting out. But the thing is that when they get traded, right, Aaron Rodgers is going to go somewhere else, and these two, this tandem is going to split up. So you might see, say, Devontae Adams signing with, we'll say Las Vegas, just because of, some kind of sign and trade deal. You might see, Aaron Rodgers showing up in Pittsburgh with, a completely different wide receiver room, or, it's going to be really interesting to see where this goes. But I definitely either seeing them both leave and go their separate ways via free agency and trade, or seeing them both leave because both of them got traded and they didn't want to play.
Again, I think if Rodgers is back, it's because he's playing. Like, they're not going to just keep Rodgers to keep Rodgers. Like, if he's playing, if he's back on the Packers rosters this year, it's because he wants to play. And again, like I said, Adams will get the money no matter what. I mean, Adams, even if Adams is franchise tagged, he'll make $18 million this year. So it's not a lack of money, and he can go, after the year's over, he can turn around and get that big contract anyways. So I think, again, if Rodgers is here, Adams is here, and Adams isn't going to sit out. He's making $18 million a year. He's not going to sit out if Rodgers is there. Obviously, if Rodgers leaves and they franchise tag him, I think he's going to sit out. But again, and the awards are going on right now, and we'll get to that right after this. But I mean, you don't sit out when the MVP quarterback is your quarterback. So I can't see him sitting out if Rodgers is back.
I can definitely see him sitting out, but we will get to that. As we're recording this, I want to say that the NFL honors are coming out. And this is right before we get into our next segment, but we have Jamar Chase winning Rookie of the Year, which I'm pretty sure everybody expected. Jamar Chase is probably one of the only reasons why the Bengals are in the Super Bowl right now. I mean, let's be honest. TJ Watt is getting Defensive Player of the Year, which again, well deserved. So yeah, and then Justin Tucker's record-breaking 66-yard field goal gets the Moment of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, again, Jamar Chase. Micah Parsons. Yeah, it gets Defensive Rookie of the Year.
That's not shocking either. Like both, pretty much. Like I think you could have guessed every single award besides the Coach of the Year, and that came out to be Mike Vrabel from the Titans. But I feel like every other award besides that, you could have guessed who it was going to be.
Right.
Very confidently. And Cooper Kupp wins Offensive Player of the Year. Nobody's surprised by that either. He put up the second best single season receiving year in the history of the NFL behind Megatron. So you could have guessed that as well. The Hall of Fame class of 2022 came out. I definitely want to say I'm very, very upset about one person not being featured in there. Devin Hester?
Oh my God, dude. He's like my favorite Bear of all time. And if not, then it's Matt Forte. But like those are my top two favorite Bears of all time. And the fact that Devin Hester's not featured, and I mean, call me somebody that doesn't know football, but I can probably only name you one person in that Hall of Fame class that I actually recognize. In all seriousness, I'm sorry if that's disrespectful. Props to those guys. I mean, obviously that's a huge award, but seriously, I just don't know anybody other than Richard Seymour. But comeback player of the year, I definitely think that was also a given with Joe Burrow. So I think Dan Quinn getting assistant coach of the year. Let's see. I'm gonna skip through a couple of them.
I don't care. That's bad. That's the other one that I think was bad. It needs to be. This is going to come as no shock to anybody. It should have been Brian Leftwich.
So I'm gonna skip the rest of it just because Coach of the Year was Mike Vrabel, which that's fair. I would give that to him because the Titans got the number one seed and they overcame a ton of adversity. It was, all of the injuries and everything that they had to overcome, and then they still got the one seed in competitive AFC. I'll give it to them. That was pretty impressive. You kind of scoffed at that though. What do you need? What'd you say?
What? Oh no, I agree. I think Mike Vrabel deserved it. Again, this is gonna be a biased take. I really wish that it would have been Nick Sirianni. That's just me. And Nick Sirianni, I think, has a way better case than what people are giving it to him for. Going into the year, you look at all these preseason rankings. I mean, people literally had the Eagles vying for the first overall pick in this draft. That's how bad people thought he was going to be, or how bad this team was going to be. And for Nick Sirianni to come in as a rookie and get his team to the playoffs, I think he has a bigger case than people are thinking. But no, I think Mike Vrabel there is going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say though, back to the whole Devin Hester thing, it's all just a case of when just wasn't his time this year, which is totally okay. But I don't know. So
and to the Devin Hester thing, it hurts me, not specifically because I have anything tied to Devin Hester, but because I obviously, as an Eagles fan, have a huge tie to Darren Sproles. And Darren Sproles is obviously known. I mean, he was a fine running back, but he was known for his return ability, just like Devin Hester was.
Right.
So if Devin Hester isn't making it in, it's really hard for me to see that Sproles making it, which hurts because I think returners should, if kickers can make it into the Hall of Fame, I think returners should be able to make it in the Hall of Fame as well.
Before we transition to the last segment, can we both just agree on this simple thing? We've done a lot of arguing today. Can we just agree that Devin Hester is the greatest return specialist of all time?
Yeah, no, I would. Yeah, I think I would give it to you. I think aforementioned Aaron Sproles, I think some people would give him a case, which I would disagree with. And I think people would also probably try to tell you Percy Harvins is in there, but I think the majority of the NFL fans would agree, and as do I. I think Devin Hester is the greatest return man of all time, but I think Percy Harvin and Sproles are right up there.
I do want to say, because this is hilarious, this would be actually kind of funny too, just to segue into our little fun segment, but there's an account that I follow on Instagram named Ghetto Gronk. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's
that page.
He or she, I don't know who runs it, but shout out to them. They're hilarious. But they made fake NFL honors that I want to read out loud after kind of skimming through and making sure that all of these are appropriate.
I love the least valuable player. Completely agree with it.
Jalen Reagor. Offensive player of the year, Trayvon Diggs. Karen of the year is Aaron Rodgers, and I love Karen Rodgers, the picture that they used. Offensive coach of the year, or I guess I should pronounce it offensive coach of the year, and John Gruden. Best hands, Alvin Kamara. Kicker of the year is Urban Meyer. Worst supporting
That's my favorite
cast.
one. That is my favorite one.
Worst supporting cast is the Mahomes family. Shouldn't have comeback player of the year is Ben Roethlisberger. CTE, he's got it, is Antonio Brown. And then Aaron Hernandez, men of the year, is Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett. I think, and this is a spur of the moment decision that I'm making for this podcast, but as for next year, we need to come up with some just for us.
Yes, I think it would. I think it'd be funny. Putting that out there before the season starts. I know this is like kind of like I'm catching off guard here. We didn't really jump. We didn't really discuss this. We didn't really discuss this at all. But if you had to put one player, it doesn't have to be MVP, but like we need to decide who the player of the pod is going to be for next year. Very, very important business.
Let's do that. And I'll just, like I said,
next week's episode,
we will have a player of the year for our, oh my gosh, we'll get into that in the conclusion. But right now we have our gridiron goofs. And that is, basically we started thinking about the playoffs and how awesome this playoff was and how literally anything could top it. And so what I did was, put together a bracket, and we just abolished conferences and divisions and just decided to say, how would this playoff go if, the playoffs in general was just, if it was just mixed up kind of, we just got rid of conferences and divisions and everything. And how would the seedings go? How would the matchups go? And who would be the winner of the Super Bowl? And so I said, I'll go with seeding and everything. And Ben can see the bracket. We're going to redo our, we'll have our individual brackets, but, the one seed, I should mention also that I seeded them off of record and strength of schedule. So just to put that out there, but the Buccaneers are the 1 seed. The Packers are the 2 seed. The 3 seed is the Rams, and 4 seed is the Titans. The 5 seed is the Chiefs. The 6 seed is the Cowboys. The 7th seed is the Bengals. The 8th seed is the Cardinals. 9th seed, 49ers. 10th seed is the Bengals. The 11th seed is the Raiders. 12th seed is the Patriots. The 13th seed is the Eagles, and then 14th seed is the Steelers. So you guys will know the matchups as I tell them to Ben, but Ben, I guess I should also say that the Buccaneers and the Packers both get first round buys because they held the top 2 records in the league. So, Ben, without further ado, our first matchup between the 49ers and Cardinals. Who you got?
See, this is such a tough exercise because we have to view it from like who we would have thought at the start. Obviously, because we know how the Bengals performed. We know how the 49ers performed. And it's so hard to do this exercise.
Who you got for
playoff?
Say that again. Sorry.
I said this exercise is so hard to do. Like, do we do it based off how they already performed in the playoffs or how we thought they would do going into the playoffs?
Right. So let's just do it based off of how we thought that they would do in the playoffs in general.
Right. I still think the 49ers would have won this because the Cardinals really started dying off there at the end of the season.
All right. So next up, we have the Chiefs and Patriots.
The Chiefs.
All right. Knocking off Mac Jones. Your Eagles going up against the Titans.
I'm going to say Eagles because Derrick Henry wasn't here. That's a good point. Derrick Henry was not there.
That's a good point.
Rams,
I was going to say.
We don't even have to.
Yeah, Rams and Steelers is the next matchup. He's going with Rams just because Big Ben's awful. Raiders and Cowboys.
Out of spite, I want to pick the Raiders, but we are going to pick the Cowboys.
Okay. Let's see. Bills and Bengals. I mean,
Bills, Bengals.
This would have been a good matchup, man.
And this is so hard because this is so hard because we see how the Bengals are doing this postseason. But going into the playoffs, which this exercise is, I would say majority of fans would have said Bills because that's just, I mean, like Joe Burrow's legend has grown so much this playoffs. And again, this exercise is supposed to be before the playoffs, right? Before we know what happened, just so everybody is clear.
So the Buccaneers and the 49ers is the next one.
Oh, and real quick, we went over the awards and everything. No shocker to anybody. This just came out as we're speaking. Aaron Rodgers won MVP. Not shocking.
You just still hate to see it, but anyway.
Yeah. The Bucks. The Bucks.
All right.
Come on.
Buccaneers and 49ers. Buccaneers are moving on. Chiefs and Eagles.
The Chiefs.
All right. The Rams and Cowboys.
The Rams.
Wow. So straightforward this round. Bills and Packers.
Bills.
Yes, sir. All right. Buccaneers and Chiefs.
See, and Super Bowl matchup. Gets fun. Yeah, this is where it gets fun because this is when, these are the games before the Super Bowl, and we wouldn't see these because these guys are in different conferences. The Chiefs.
Chiefs are taking it. All right, retiring Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, like I said, that roster's so old, and it's so hard to win back-to-back championships alone, let alone the age of the roster and the extra.
Right. Yeah. So as far as the Rams and Bills go, though, how are you feeling about this matchup?
The end of the season, without me knowing what happened, I would have told you the Bills.
Okay. Wait a second. So start over again. Sorry.
Again, this is so hard for me to judge because I started souring on the Rams near the end of the season. And again, this is with not knowing what is going on in the playoffs. I'm gonna say the Bills.
Okay. So it looks like we have the Chiefs and Bills in our Super Bowl, which just so happened to be a matchup. So who you got? This is a tough one. So
this is such a tough matchup. Again, like you said, it's a matchup we've already seen before, which gave us a very good game. That same game was repeated here, I would not have, I wouldn't be complaining. But I think the Chiefs would win this.
wow, okay. So Chiefs winning a Super Bowl. And
Shocker.
yeah, nobody's really surprised. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let me see. All right, I'm gonna reset it. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and do mine. So between the 49ers and Cardinals, I'm going to say, you know, I feel like the Cardinals are actually going to take this one. I think, you know what? No, I'll switch that back to the 49ers.
Yes.
I think Debo's going to go off in this matchup and everything. And with all the injuries and everything, and with Nick Bosa, I think it's Nick Bosa, right? It's not
Yes.
Nick Bosa.
It's
okay.
Nick. Yeah.
I get them all mixed up. But anyway.
Yeah.
With Nick Bosa on the edge and everything to try and put more pressure on Kyler Murray, you know. I'll make this short and sweet. Chiefs and Patriots. Chiefs. I mean, that's a given.
Yep.
Eagles, Titans, and you did make a good point that I didn't even think about. I would normally give this one to the Titans, but Eagles come in and shock the world and beat the Titans in fashion of, how this playoff went. The Rams are going to end up demolishing the Steelers, and Big Ben's going to go home crying. The Cowboys and Raiders, it's going to be a lot closer than people think, but at the end of the day, Cowboys get it done. Their Raiders pass coverage just isn't there. As for Bills and Bengals, yikes. So, I hate this. This is awful. How did you do this so easily? I would say I'm going to say Bills, just because I didn't expect the Bengals to go this far. I think I had them in the divisional round, but yeah, Bengals are just, I don't know. Bills are going on. 49ers and Buccaneers, I'll give it to the Buccaneers this time, just because I think the Buccaneers have, with this first round bye, they're able to get a little bit healthier. And I think with that, they're going to be able to beat Jimmy Garoppolo and his 49ers, which would make for a perfect storyline, by the way, if, Jimmy Garoppolo sent Tom Brady retiring, or if Tom Brady could overcome his successor before he retires. But anyway, so the Chiefs and Eagles, I'm going to say the Chiefs. Basically we have the same exact.
We're looking pretty similar right now.
Yeah. Rams and Cowboys though. I'm going to pick the Rams just because of their pass coverage and everything with Eric Waddle coming in. I mean, that and the pass rush, it's overwhelming for the Cowboys. They can't get anything moving on offense in that game. So Bills and Packers. I love the Bills. I don't think they're pulling it out on the Packers. So I think the Packers are actually going to win that one, unfortunately. And at this point, we have the Buccaneers and Chiefs in a Super Bowl matchup, or rematch, I should say, and the Rams and Packers. Okay. So with this, Brady, oh man, I'm going to say Brady comes back and beats Mahomes after a comeback win, just to keep it. I'm not going to say just for this playoff sake, but I will say just to, I think that something's going to happen. It's your typical Brady game. He'll go to another Super Bowl before he retires. As for the Packers and Rams, yeah, Matthew Stafford's going to be the guy to send Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay, and he's going to take it. So it's going to be Rams and Buccaneers in LA for this Super Bowl. And I believe that the Rams are actually going to beat the Buccaneers, and Matthew Stafford will get his ring, and Tom Brady will just figure out that he's just not that guy anymore. But he goes and retires. Same outcome, basically. It's just the Rams win. So that's mine. Ben, you got any reactions for me?
Shocked me that you went with the Packers there. Because I'm assuming if Josh Allen continued to move on past the Bengals, he probably played a very good game. And just as a Bears fan, it shocks me that you're going to have them move on. But, we try to stay as unbiased as possible on this podcast.
Absolutely. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
But Ben, do you have any closing statements for us for this week's episode?
It was, again, it'll be a very fun Super Bowl to watch. I'm okay with either outcome. But again, as I said, the draft is always my thing, as you've reiterated. I'm obviously, I don't want this season to end, but I'm ready for draft season to start and free agency to start. It's always, to me, the second funnest part of the season besides the Super Bowl and playoffs. So we're transitioning right into another fun period, at least for me, of the NFL year. I guess you can't say season, but yeah, can't wait.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So if you made it this far, we want to say thank you for listening all the way through.
Yes.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Pigskin Project. We have a lot scheduled for next week's show, including our reactions from the Super Bowl, off-season previews, and much, much more. I am so excited for next week's episode because we can finally dive into free agency and all this stuff that we'll be covering for, I'm sure, months.
Oh yeah, free agency
So,
predictions too. That might happen next episode or the episode following, but yeah, stay tuned. Off-season content will still keep it coming, and thank you for sticking around this long.
Yeah, for sure. So make sure that you're subscribed or following us on all platforms. We'd like to give a big thank you to Anchor.fm for helping us promote our podcast. Please leave a review down below as it helps us more than you know. And that's it for this week. So thanks again for tuning in to the Pigskin Project.